Oh, that'd be good.
All right, well, let's settle. That's where we're heading, along the Murray. Although we've been on the road now for 2 years, we haven't completed one full circuit of Australia just yet. In this episode, we're going to set off here from Burra and travel along the Murray River. Along the way, we'll explore historic Burra.
I'll cook up a special dish using local apples.
I'll try my hand at making delicious chocolates.
We'll take a houseboat ride on the Murray River.
We'll meet a third-generation professional fisherman who knows where the Murray cod are.
And meet some wild men at the Burra Rodeo.
See a lot of things.
One great way to experience Burra's history is to use a heritage passport. With this key and this booklet, which contains a map and information, we can conduct our own tour at our own pace. Would you like to look after the key?
I will.
By 1851, Burra was the largest inland town in Australia. To walk its streets today is to walk well-trodden paths which connect old historic buildings like the Commercial Hotel, constructed in 1876. A hub of activity then, it is still thriving today. The mine, however, no longer thrives. A collection of well-preserved mining buildings give just a hint of the monster mine, as it was called.
In the 1850s, the mine employed more than 1,000 men and boys. Most were Cornish. All positions of importance were held by Cornishmen, and the ore was transported by bullock wagon to Port Adelaide, a 2-week journey. To avoid the cost of shipping the ore to Wales in Britain, smelters were eventually built, but they consumed 600 tonnes of firewood each week. Trees were scarce around Burra, so the wood was cut and hauled great distances to feed the furnaces.
Because the mine was prone to flooding, Moffat's engine house was built to accommodate a massive Cornish pump engine 2 metres in diameter. It worked perfectly for 17 years, by which time mining procedures switched to open cut methods, and as it was no longer needed, closed down. Blasting of the hard rock was carried out using gunpowder. The powder magazine building, used to house the blasting powder, was erected in 1847 and is the oldest remaining mine building in Australia. The outer wall was intended to provide additional safety to passers-by in the event of an explosion. The strong arch of the stone roof bears testament to the engineering skills of the Cornish craftsmen who built it. The open cut, abandoned in 1981, is now flooded with groundwater about 50 metres deep in the pit. Our next stop on our Heritage Passport tour is the old Burra Railway Station, built in 1883, abandoned now to the wind and dust. The last train left in 1985.
Using our passport key, we gain access to the old police lockup and stables. Built in 1847, these were used as a temporary jail until a more substantial structure could be built.
Just imagine being in here, locked up.
I don't want to.
No, wouldn't be much fun.
Built in 1873, the Unicorn Brewery has little left of the original buildings, but there is still plenty to see.
The Cooper's workshop, steam engine and boiler have gone, but the manager's residence and the extensive system of underground cellars are in good condition. On the occasion of our visit, the surface temperature is around 39 degrees, so this labyrinth of tunnels, at least 10 degrees cooler, come as a welcome relief. When the brewery was working between 1873 and 1902, it supplied the town's 9 hotels.
A bit low. Evidence of the Cornish miners' stone masonry is everywhere. Our next stop is to number 11 in this row of cottages, for it is special. A walk across the threshold is a step into the past. Furnished in the style of a mine captain's residence from the 1850s, we're greeted by ladies who dress and talk in the manner of the original Cornish inhabitants.
Just to give you an idea of their writing, and you had to write like that with your right hand on that slant with your thin up line and your dark down line.
Among the Burra National Trust treasures is a rare handmade quilt dating from the early 1800s. Other practical objects from the past adorn every corner of every room and are proudly explained by our guide who leads us through the old building in her period costume. A wooden yoke to carry buckets of water, an open fire to cook with, a dusting brush made of flayed rope, and wooden paddles from which to shape slabs of butter.
The girl would go outside and swing the iron like that, quite viciously really. The idea of swinging it, you're taking the ash off your coals and reheating your iron. It's a bit like blowing up a fire, you've got the wind going through there and your ash coming out there. That's the way it would reheat. If it didn't reheat by swinging, that's what it's called.
Out the back, a vegetable and herb garden planted out as it would have been 1.5 centuries ago.
Many of the Cornish mining families migrated to Australia under an assisted passage scheme, seeking a new life, and quite often, this is where they ended up. When they arrived in Burra to work in the mines, housing was in such short supply that many of them ended up living in these dugout dwellings in the banks of the river. At one stage, there were so many families living in these dugouts, the whole creek was like a street. Now, you might think that living in a rabbit warren and earning £1.5 to £2 a week was pretty rough, but in fact, compared to the conditions they'd left behind in Cornwall, they were well off. Just a handful of the original 600 dugouts which once lined the creek survive today. At its peak, 1,800 of the total population of 4,400 lived in Creek Street, as it was known. Devastated by floods on several occasions, the inhabitants were driven to abandon their rudimentary dwellings. By 1860, the dugouts, complete with sleeping rooms, kitchens and chimneys, were deserted. Next, we visit an orchard.
Let the Leyland.
There's nothing quite as tasty as a fresh apple picked straight from the tree. But apples are the last thing we expected to find growing in Burra. In fact, there's a whole orchard here with over 70 varieties of apples, all grown for a very special purpose. Because there's a lot more that you can do with apples than simply eat them.
I think so.
Tony and Susan Thorogood planted their trees in the dry hills of Burra 7 years ago and discovered that apples grow well here as long as they can keep up the water supply. Originally, they expected to sell the crop, but soon discovered that it made better sense to chop the apples into pulp and produce genuine old-fashioned cider. The intervening years became a period of trial and error, but eventually, by studying the traditional ways that have been used for centuries, they perfected a cider so nice that they claim it's as good as any wine. They carry out all stages of the process themselves. To make cider, the apples must be ground into a coarse pulp. In times gone by, this was usually achieved using stone mills driven by horsepower, a water wheel or a steam engine. Tony and Susan use a traditional wooden press to extract the apple juice. The apples are picked when ripe and are so full of juice that it begins to flow quite freely, even before the press is tightened. The juice is destined to be stored in oak barrels, where it will ferment naturally with the aid of a little yeast. The barrels are opened after 1 year, resulting in something special. The proof is in the tasting. So what is it like? Well, it is indeed like a fine wine. It's smooth and elegant with a natural spicy flavour. Tony and Susan make a medium sweet and dry cider too, as well as a sparkling variety which ferments in the bottle in the same way as champagne. They've created a unique product for a niche market and happily relate their story to visitors.
We came here and we started planting these old apple trees with the idea of growing old apples and perhaps making cider. But everything else we planted died because of the frosts. So eventually all we had left was apples. And each year we planted more and more varieties. So because we couldn't grow oranges and things, we grew greater varieties of apples. And each year we planted more and more varieties and more apples. And after about 5 years, these apples started cropping. And then we started selling them and we never got much for them. But then we started making cider and it was all right. It was drinkable, but you wouldn't sell it. And one day we discovered, we invented this cider called Gold Dust, and we thought that was absolutely splendid. Yes, equal to any wine, and so we started making Gold Dust.
I'm always on the lookout for good local recipes when we're travelling, and although this one sounds a little bit more exotic than a lot of the camping meals we do, the one I've picked up from Thoroughgood's apple cider sounded really interesting, so I thought I'd give it a go. It's called Braised Sausages in Apple Cider. It uses a bottle of apple cider, naturally, 2 large onions peeled and sliced, 2 fresh apples cored and sliced, and the main ingredient, sausages. It works well with pork sausages, but here in Burra, I'm using the local delicacy, and that's saltbush hogget sausages. Just lightly fry the apple rings in the hot oil. It takes a little while to cook all of them in a small frying pan like this. Fry the onions in butter until they're brown. I'm browning the sausages on all sides, and this time I'm using a deep saucepan. When the sausages are brown, add the apples and the onions. Sprinkle 2 tablespoons of plain flour. Gently stir it all together. The flour has to get down to the bottom to into the juices. Gently pour in the cider. The final ingredients are half a teaspoon of thyme and 4 bay leaves. Put the lid on it and simmer it for 1 hour on a low heat. According to the recipe, it's best served with mashed potato.
Well, if it tastes as good as it smells, I think it's going to be alright.
Oh, that's good. It's not bad at all.
That is nice. Now, what I expect from now on, every time we go camping, something of this ilk. Okay?
Oh, well, cook it yourself.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
After leaving Burra, the road follows the course of the Burra Creek until it reaches the Murray River. Most of this country is grazing land, supporting some of Australia's largest merino sheep properties. It is the height of summer at the time of our visit. The land is dry and scorched and is experiencing one of the hottest spells on record. The seemingly endless plains of saltbush parade past the windows for hours. This hardy native shrub of the outback may look as though it has little to offer livestock, but sheep manage quite well on it, especially during droughts. We reached the Murray River at Morgan, where we cross using one of several ferries which still operate in this part of Australia. Morgan is on the northwest bend, a tight turn in the mighty river where it changes direction and swings south.
At just on 15 metres in length for each of our rigs and a width of 2.4 metres each, there's not a lot of spare room on the ferry.
Now that we've reached the Murray River, it's easy to see that we've arrived in Riverland country, because Riverland country is famous for its fruit trees. It's a good time to be here too, because at the moment they're picking some of the fruit. Settlements along the mighty Murray River owe their existence to the abundant waters of the river and the rich red soil. Irrigation techniques developed here in the early 1900s have established this region as the fruit bowl of the whole nation. Fruit from orchards like the one owned by the Hopewell family are destined to become sun-dried fruit. The best quality comes from rich, juicy, tree-ripened specimens, which also taste sensational straight from the tree.
I think we'll call this the fruit trip. First we have apples, now we have peaches. Oh, that's so juicy. Peter and Astrid Hopewell have farmed their orchard for 18 years, and in that time have sliced open countless thousands of apricots and peaches for drying. The peaches must be sliced open individually by hand, so that the wrinkly stone which clings to the flesh can be removed. Apricots, however, have a smooth stone, which has allowed the development of a machine to carry out the task in a fraction of the time needed to do it manually. Most of the stones are shaken out by the machine. A few still slip through onto the racks, but are quickly removed before stacking the fruit, ready for an 8-hour treatment with sulphur fumes. This preserves the fruit's flavour and colour. After the sulphur treatment, it's time to let the blazing summer sun do its drying job. 2 days in the sun, followed by a few more days drying in the shade of the shed, and these delicious beauties are ready to be packed for market.
Some of the dried apricots end up just along the river a little at a homemade chocolate factory near Waikerie.
It's a small family business run by confectioner Janet Gross and her husband Dean. They began country cuisine 7 years ago as a wholesale business, but now sell about 1/3 of their output to passing tourists. Janet's background as a professional confectioner is essential.
So we use local fruits. In fact, we buy the fruit and it's all prepared in the factory by my husband.
Preparation of the apricot-based centres starts by mincing first-grade dried fruit. The minced fruit is then blended with condensed milk and coconut. The mixture once more passes through the mincer to create square strips. Former fruit farmer Dean has developed his own methods of preparing the chocolate centres and is quick to point out that precise temperature and humidity control is essential. The cubes are tumbled for several minutes to round off the sharp corners. It's these fruity morsels which are expertly coated with chocolate by Janet. She must work quickly, keeping the melted chocolate at 32 degrees. As soon as each piece is poured out, it solidifies almost instantly. A good trick which, if carried out properly, produces an attractive swirl on top. With Janet's deft hand, it looks deceptively simple. On a good day, she can make about 1,000 individual chocolate treats. The centres are mostly local fruit, but she also makes truffles and rum-based varieties.
I mean, it doesn't look
Difficult to do.
there.
Well, you come and try it.
Like that.
Yeah, knock it a few times on the side. Wipe it underneath.
And you scraped it.
Yeah, now tip it in there.
You're not allowed to
Better to leave it. Better to leave it when that opens.
It wouldn't come out.
Yeah, that was the problem with it.
Now
Can
try.
I try one more?
Yep.
Put it in. Cover it over. Scrape it.
There you are.
I've got paper still on mine.
That's good. Perfect consistency of rum.
Next, we go boating.
Is a fruit-growing town along the Murray, which was established as a settlement of hopeful pioneers who arrived by paddle steamer to carve out a farming community around 1894. The hardy settlers managed, against all odds, to grub out the harsh mully scrub and convert it to productive farmland using extensive irrigation. Today, it is in the centre of the largest citrus-growing region in Australia, a fact reinforced by the distinctive orange-shaped rubbish bins in the main street. Today is the 26th of January, Australia Day, and we're invited to join the locals to celebrate in the showground. Community spirit is strong here, probably because many of today's residents are direct descendants of those pioneers who carved the town from the bush by cooperative community action. In such surroundings, it's easy to relax and enjoy the night.
We've made a decision that we're going to leave the caravans for a few days. We're going to go up the Murray River on a houseboat. Temperatures have soared to over 40 degrees, so the idea of several days cruising the peaceful waters of the mighty Murray has a lot of appeal. Bad, is it?
This is Robert's logo.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
You made it yours already?
Yep, I claimed it first.
The houseboat is equipped with a power generator and an air conditioner. It has accommodation for 6, a kitchen and lounge. It's about the size of 4 caravans and cruises at about 6 knots. There is no better way to experience this mightiest of all our rivers. No special boating licences are required to operate a houseboat, but it does pay to designate a skipper and make it clear who the crew are. We elected Robert as our skipper.
Yes, but will the crew obey my commands? Carmen, beer. Lorraine, food. Mal, relax.
Don't get too carried away, Robert. It's only for just under a week.
As soon as we pass by the Waikerie ferry crossing, we come across the first of many impressive cliffs which line the banks on this section of the river. When Captain Charles Sturt, the first explorer to come down the river, sighted these cliffs in 1830, he too was impressed and noted that the cliffs were made of a compact bed of fossilised shells.
Houseboat travel is peaceful and the ever-changing scenery slips by at a gentle pace. Navigation is relatively simple with few obstacles to worry the skipper. We have time to enjoy the relaxing tempo and even while away the time with such amusements as cards and crosswords.
Navigation is made easy by the placement of markers on the banks. They indicate the distance in kilometres from the mouth of the river, and their position is clearly indicated on the set of charts which are provided by the houseboat hire company. Houseboat cruises have been popular on the Murray ever since the first one was introduced at Renmark. Today, thousands of families use them to escape on annual holidays for a week or two. In some ways, the idea of traversing the waters of the Murray by houseboat seems romantically linked with the old days when paddle steamers plied the Murray, carrying goods and passengers. In those days, the river was the highway linking the townships along its banks, and the paddle steamers were looked upon as floating department stores, carrying all the latest fashions and farming gadgetry from the city. One of the great freedoms of river travel is the fact that the boat can be tied up at any point along the bank, thus providing an almost limitless number of great camping spots. When the first pioneering settlers cleared the land and planted their orchards, they needed to survive until the trees grew to maturity. Hunting for game and fishing were the usual means. Special exclusive fishing licenses were issued for each section of the river, and the settlers were expected to live off this. They caught fish for their own needs and could sell any surplus. Today, a handful of those fishing leases still exist. One has been handed down to third-generation professional fisherman David Kane.
Biggest one I caught last year was...
Or ever.
Well, ever I reckon was about a 90 pounder, but last year I caught one that was 1200 mil long, and I estimate about 70.
You said you could have been on boat.
Great struggle.
David's reach of the river is marked with a plaque at each end which informs amateur anglers that no nets or traps may be used in this section.
What we do with the gill net, you use different size mesh to catch a particular year class. Very selective fishing. You anything that's undersized will go straight through the net, and anything that's what we class as oversized will won't get caught in the net.
So that's how you can target certain fish, isn't it?
Yeah, that's how you can target a certain size, so you don't catch the ones that are too small and damage them, or the ones that are what we class as anything over 1100 mils.
Fishing professionally in the Murray has not been very viable in recent years owing to the decline in good eating species, like the big Murray cod he showed us earlier. With locks on the river, there is very little flooding, and the cod need floodwaters to spill into the lagoons and swamps alongside the river, for the swamps are their breeding grounds. David reckons the last good flood which triggered breeding took place 8 years ago. Golden perch, however, are more adaptable and seem to have modified their breeding patterns to suit the way the river is today.
There's a nice golden perch. Well, my grandfather started, he got the reach in 1931 and fished it most of his life, and then my dad and my uncle took over the reach and both fished it, and my father passed away, and I got the reach after him, and I've been fishing it for now for 7 years. So it's a heritage fishery, and it's been in the family since 1931. Another one. Always set your net with your funnels and your wings coming out. All fish swim upstream, and they seem to swim in and out as they feed, and you sort of have to pick your spots where they're going in to catch them.
David Kane works his fishing reach every day when conditions are right for a reasonable catch, a tangible link with the past traditions of the grand old river. Another tradition is providing fish to fellow river travellers, so our first night on the river is celebrated in classic style.
This is one of those highlight moments of our trip around Australia to be cherished forever. Fresh perch, cooked to perfection and eaten in style on the banks of the Murray River. Next we drop in on an artist who paints the Murray and its many moods.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
Okay.
Actually, it's very important when you tie the boat up to put both the stern lines and the bow lines ashore. That stops the vessel from swinging around on the shore. And of course, while Robert and I are out here in the hot sun doing this, the girls are in the boat with the generator running on the back so they can have the air conditioner on inside. But with any luck, they're getting lunch together.
Captain's lunch is here.
What have we got? Corned meat?
Corned meat,
Carmen's already looked
pickles, cheese, some sprouts.
A voyage along the Murray River by paddle steamer was once fraught with the very real possibility of running out of water, resulting in the vessel being stuck in the mud until the next fresher of floodwater came along. Fortunately, a series of locks were constructed to guarantee a minimum of 2 metres of water, so no such risk exists for today's houseboat users. We pause at Wrigley Flat, which in the era of the paddle steamer was a reliable source of wood to feed the boilers. Today it is part of Akuna Station, where a working paddle boat is moored like some ghostly reminder of the old days. With morning, we move on upstream. In spite of the reliable water level, it's still good practice to keep a watchful eye on the chart and stick to the recommended channel, as many shallow spots still exist on the inner bends.
In a matter of 30 minutes, our perfect sunny day takes a turn for the worse. Storm clouds gather upstream, but the temperature remains high. We take refuge in the living room while the first droplets of rain begin to fall. Visibility is still good, so Robert continues steaming upriver.
A further 15 minutes and a storm suddenly bursts upon us. With visibility now deteriorating, we decide to call it a day and tie up for the night. The banks are a bit muddy, but at least the rain has temporarily dropped the temperature a little. Time for a dip off the back of the boat.
Hey, there's not many rungs on the ladder. Bit of a short one.
I'll leave the clowning around to them. Within an hour, the sky is beginning to clear. Tomorrow should be fine again.
Next morning, all clouds have gone and we're treated to a perfect sunrise on the river. The magical qualities of the river are obvious. It's easy to see why many who come this way fall in love with the Murray and stay. One who did is artist Gary Duncan. He has a house and studio right on the banks and spends his time engaged in his creative passion, which is capturing the varying moods of the Murray and the abundant wild creatures which depend upon it.
Most of Gary's paintings reflect his strong environmental beliefs. It's been a long, tough road to reach a degree of success, but now he can at least live on the proceeds of his work.
Well, I've been painting all my life, and I started doing this professionally when I was about 25. I did an apprenticeship as a sign runner. I got sick of that. I mean, I needed to find a way to support myself, and decided I'd start painting full-time, and I've been doing it since about 1975. There's lots of issues that I address from time to time, but the most pressing and constant issue is the environment. I mean, constantly you look around you and the country's degrading. Not just Australia, it's happening all over the world. It's impossible to live in the bush and not take that into consideration. So I guess that's my main inspiration. I really think that if we don't address the problem and do something about it, fix it in the near future, we won't be around in 50, 100 years. We'll be extinct. For your species to live, they've got to have a habitat, so the habitat becomes very important. I don't know if you noticed, but most of my work doesn't have people in there. And the reason is because people get in the landscape and bugger it up. This is our major source of water, the Murray-Darling Basin, and without it, we just don't exist. I mean, I think it produces about 70% of all Australia's food produce. A lot of that's exported. Without it, we're in deep trouble.
Reluctantly, we leave Gary painting in his studio and resume our voyage in the houseboat. It's time to return to Waikerie.
In Waikerie, we'll collect our caravans and move on. Next, a bush rodeo in Berry.
Let the Leylands show you the way.
Carl, of course I love you. I want to marry you. The baby's yours. Darcy just fell. It was an accident. I'm not sleeping with Jack Scully. The baby's yours.
Neighbours returns Monday, January 10.
I'm here in the Orange Direct call centre with news of their latest great value mobile deal. It's amazing how popular Orange has become in recent years. Little wonder with offers like this. A superb new Nokia 6225 camera phone can be yours for just $9 a month over 24 months. That's right, a tiny $9 a month. On the new low-cost plan called Orange Fair 9, you get $9 worth of calls and SMS every month for a $9 minimum monthly spend. Low Orange call rates and SMS for only 15 cents to any other Australian network. Up to 500 free SMS every month, Orange to Orange. Plus, up to a $100 account credit when you trade in a working Nokia. Now, this Nokia 6225 mobile features an integrated digital camera and onboard photo album, a handy hands-free speaker function, and even an FM radio and free stereo earpiece. All for just $9 a month over 24 months. This is Karen, a supervisor at Orange Direct. Is the team ready to take the calls for this amazing deal?
They certainly are, Sess.
So call Orange Direct now on 1300 55 1195. Have your driver's licence and credit card ready, and Karen and her team will arrange everything over the phone, including free delivery to your door. Plus, we can transfer your existing mobile number too. And as a special bonus, the first 50 callers to buy today will also receive an in-car charger worth $33 absolutely free. So there you have it, a new Nokia camera phone for a tiny $9 a month for 24 months. Low-cost calls and SMS, plus an added bonus. Are you ready to take the calls now? Yeah! Go on, call now on 1300 55 1195. A new Nokia camera phone for a tiny $9 a month for 24 months. Come on, call now.
No trip through what is often referred to as the Fruit Bowl of Australia would be complete without stopping at a roadside fruit stall and restocking with fresh local produce. All fruit and vegetables sold here are grown on the owner's farm behind the stall and is guaranteed fresh. We have timed our arrival in Burra to coincide with the annual Riverland Rodeo. In spite of our extensive travels, we have never attended a professional rodeo before. The action starts almost immediately.
The object is to stay on the bucking horse for 8 seconds. Points are awarded for degree of difficulty and riding skill. Just about all the riders are young men who work in the Riverland area, but some have travelled halfway across the country to compete here.
You've been doing this?
I've been riding with bareback horses for on and off 2 years. But been rodeoing all my life.
It may look easy, but it really is tiring work. The spectators need a break too. After sunset, the bulls are brought on, and these animals are dangerous. 16-year-old junior bull riding champion Lee McLennan is about to find out just how dangerous. The bull's horns manage to slip under the safety vest, inflicting a bruised lung and internal bleeding.
Just check him out, fellas. He's got one up the rib cage, I think, St John's, please.
Fortunately, medical aid is on hand, and we're pleased to report that Lee will recover quickly to be released from hospital in a few days to ride again. Some of the older riders have plenty of flash, but not much dash. For this bloke, it's over in seconds.
Turn him out.
Soon we're treated to a demonstration of a perfect ride. All in all, our first rodeo proves to be a great night's entertainment and a great way to conclude this leg of our great caravanning adventure around Australia.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, that's it for the bull riding.
In the morning, we hook up the caravans and set off down the highway. There's a lot of country still waiting to be discovered. Next on Leyland's Australia, we follow the southern coastline where we have a close-up encounter with the remarkable mallee fowl. We visit the dazzling Blue Crater Lake of Mount Gambier, see the famous king crabs of Portland, walk in an ancient petrified forest, visit a colony of Australian fur seals, see thousands of mutton birds return from fishing, and travel along one of the world's greatest ocean drives, the Great Ocean Road of Victoria. Next on Leyland's Australia.
Our countryside is on display. Pack up your...
For great travel information, why not collect Leyland's Australia, the magazine? A new one will be in your newsagents every 3 months. If you like our TV shows, you'll love the magazine.
The Leyland's Australia, great Aussie holidays. Australia, let the Leylands show you the way. The Leylands will show you Australia. Let the Leylands show you the way.
Frank Aletta with the latest from the 10 newsroom. 6 Australians confirmed dead in Asia's tsunami disaster and grave concerns for another 11. More dramatic pictures are emerging of the moment the deadly waves hit.
Oh my God, look, it's just coming in now, right over the swimming pool.
Aid supplies are finally arriving in affected areas and emotional reunions at airports around the country as survivors return. We'll have more news in an hour.